You got to operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. I'm Daniel, and today we're going to review the Kentucky game and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. The Kentucky game was a game Florida should have won. In my preview of the season in the first 6 games, I said that losing this game would be an epic failure. And in a way, I do believe that. I also said that if there are injuries and coaching issues, things could also turn out a little bit differently. I do think some of that came into play here. We'll go into that further as we go throughout the episode. Obviously, the offense, as Billy Napier said, did not do enough to win this game. Our defense definitely did. We'll go through our offense, we'll give grades, defense give grades, and all that good stuff. So to begin for the offense, I feel bad doing this, but I do have to give Anthony Richardson's performance an F, but I do have an asterisk that we will get into. He finished 14 of 35, which is a completion of 30 or 40%, and had 143 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also had only 6 carries for 4 yards, and we'll also get into that a little bit. Now, there are some things that I've heard said about him since. There's been a lot of overreactions on the internet, and one of them I've seen is that he's not a good passer, and this night showed it. Well, that's not quite true. We've seen him hit these throws before. There were multiple throws open at the beginning of the game. He just missed them. He overthrew a long ball to Henderson. He did flip a nice ball for sure. That was just out of his reach at the beginning of the game. And then he also missed throughout the game some of the crossing routes that we saw him hit multiple times against Utah. You can't tell me, oh, he can't hit a pass that we saw him hit 4 or 5 times against Utah on those crossing routes with those concepts. Now, again, receivers, I saw them open. You saw them open. I don't know exactly what was going on with him. And those 2 picks, obviously one thing we want to see out, Anthony Richardson is taking care of the ball. The first interception they threw, which I think was a big game changer, and Billy Napier went into this in his press conference, and that there's a difference if we go into halftime up by multiple scores or if we go up by 3, which was the result of this pick. But it was a tremendous play by Wright for Kentucky, where Anthony Richardson sees Wright coming at him. Wright actually peels off from what it looked like to me, peels off of the rush towards Richardson, kind of reads his eyes, goes out and pulls in a one-handed snag, takes it the other way inside the 10. The second one appeared to be a miscommunication about what kind of route Naquan Wright was running. That is, whether it was supposed to be a hitch or stop route, or whether he was supposed to be going deep. Wright appears to run deep while Richardson throws the hitch. Now, I don't think had the route been, or the communication been the right route, that it still wasn't a pick just because of the nature of trying to make that long throw across the field. But yeah, you never know. Either way, not a good choice. And that's one thing we did talk about in the preseason is sometimes AR's choices do need to be better, and it did punish us in this game. One thing I do want to get into regarding AR and his performance is I do believe he is injured, and not just because of the video that's floating around of him limping after his first throw of the game, which was a completion, and he got hit in the lower legs. You see him walking off. The video is on Twitter. It's also on SaturdayDownSouth.com. I saw an article linking to the Twitter. But I can tell you, I saw it later on a few drives with my own eyes, and I was like, oh, that's not good. Told the people I was watching the game with, hey, look at that. You didn't really see that on the broadcast. I've watched the broadcast through twice now. Didn't really see anything like that. But I can tell you, I did notice it once or twice from the stands and not on the play where it was videoed. Why do I think that's a possibility? Just because of this video, just because I saw the limp? Yes, I know he said after the game he's fine, but that's the winner in him not wanting to make excuses. And why would you tell future teams you're not fine if you're going to be the quarterback? That's just asking to help them game plan against you. But anyways, the first reason is he only had 6 carries. What is the strength everyone says about Anthony Richardson? It is his ability to run the football. Of those 6 carries, only 2 of those appeared to be design runs. Another one was a fumble he picked up and ran for a few yards, and then 3 were scrambles or rollouts. In order, these are those 6 carries. On the first drive, he had a 4-yard run on third down. What was interesting to me about it is he runs, goes to make a cut, slips, and gets hit. I wonder if that slip had to do with any type of injury or just he slipped on a wet field. But if he continues to his right instead of taking the left right into the linebacker, if he continues to his right, he may have a touchdown. And again, things like that would change the game. The second one was when he fumbled, picked it up, and ran it for a few yards. The third one was a rollout on the first TD drive. They had kind of a levels concept. Kentucky played it fine, sent guys, covered everyone that was rolling to the right, shut off that half the field. So finally, he just ran 1 yard and out of bounds. On the fourth run, it was when he was quote unquote sacked at the 21. Again, he was forced out of the pocket on that one because of a pass rush. No one was there for him to make a good throw. He probably should have thrown it away, but he ended up going out of bounds at 21 and losing about 7 to 9 yards. And the fifth one is the play where we saw him slide after running out of the pocket. Slide kind of gets a little bit of a horse collar, not called. I don't think that was a bad no call, but just to reference in your mind. And also as he's sliding, the Kentucky defender kind of lands on him. Lots of Florida fans booed. Watching the replay, doesn't look like it's that big of a deal, but I understand after the roughing the passer on Levis why some people would be upset. And the 6-1 was at about 5 minutes ago in the third quarter. He ran for 4 yards. Another reason is throughout the game, I rewatched it twice, and also in the game, I counted maybe 5 read options. And the read option really is the base play for this offense, meaning that's the type of play that this entire offense is built around. And when I only see about 5 a game, that tells me we're trying to limit it for some reason. One way you can tell whether it's a read option or a handoff, if you want to rewatch the game, or one of the reasons why I can tell you some of these were not read options, is AR during the handoff has his back to the line. If it's a read option, you're reading the defense the whole time. You can't read the defense with your back to the line. And also, he did not carry out as many fakes after the handoff like last week. Last week, he would fake that handoff and pull it and run. Or if he gave the handoff, he would run and take at least one guy with him as they believed he had the ball. Didn't see too much of that on the replays, where if he gave the ball to the running back, there wasn't much full-on sprinting as if he had kept the ball to fake out the defense. When you don't see that, that allows the defense to more key on the running back, allows them to stack the box, and it takes away one of the threats that they have. So if he was not injured, I do believe that it would be a coaching failure to call maybe 7 possible AR run plays throughout the entire game. And that would be, of course, the 2 design QB runs I mentioned of the 6 carries, as well as up to maybe 5 read options from what I saw. If you got a guy fully healthy who can run and you take away that running ability and you take away one threat that the defense has to account for, that is a coaching failure. I don't think the staff is that crazy to take away his running ability unless there's something going on. Again, I know what was said post game or what people are saying. He said he was fine. As I've said before, that's a competitor in him. What I see from the film, what I see from the play calling, tells me that we were trying to limit his running for some reason. If not, then we've got greater concerns about what kind of plays we're dialing up. that brings up the other issue of play calling. I see a lot of people, we need a new OC. Our OC is terrible. And to be honest, if anyone's seen me on Twitter before I started this podcast, anyone on message boards, I'm not the biggest fan of this scheme, or I wasn't, based on the numbers that Billy Napier's teams had put up. But I'm still in the camp of let's see what it does when he has the talent that he can have at Florida. If I'm not abandoning it, I'm telling you, don't abandon it yet either. Because if AR was limited, as everything seems to indicate, then it would blow up the game plan because you lost your base play, as we discussed. And without that run threat, again, it allows other teams to stack the box. And I'm wondering how much in the limited installation of this offense that they've had in the spring and fall camp and so far, how many not read option plays or ways they can, cause a bunch of chaos, how many direct handoff plays were actually in the playbook. And it limits what you can do, and also limits what you can do when AR does have a ridiculously inaccurate night. Some of that, if he was injured, could account for it, but some of it, he's got to get better with the accuracy and with some decision making. But again, that would affect play calling. And I would say there are two main bad calls. The first one is more of a composite, and that's most things that go outside to the short side of the field, whether it's screens to the short side of the field, whether it's a toss or a handoff that goes to the short side of the field, but it's a designed outside run. I am not a fan of those because the short side of the field brings a 12th defender into the defense, which is called the sideline. If your goal to going outside is to get guys in space, go to where the space is. Now, there are arguments for why you would go to the short side. My problem is it seems like a good portion, if not a majority, of the outside calls do go to the short side of the field, which shows a tendency which other teams will pick up on, which other teams will play, and they will take advantage of that 12th defender. The second bad call that I would highlight is that first fourth down attempt. First off, I wouldn't have gone for it on fourth down with 8 minutes, 41 seconds at my own 40, because if I don't get it, then the other team is really close to going up by 2 scores with points, and I'm not going to count on someone missing a field goal like they did. I probably punt it, hope we get them within the 10, play some field position game. The defense had been playing well to that point, but that is what it is. I'm not here to talk about the decision to go for it or not. There are good arguments either way. What I'm here to say is the play that we ran, which was the isolated slant to Frazier's, I probably would have put either a Justin Shorter, who's a guy with sure hands, is one of our bigger receivers, if not our biggest size-wise receiver who could body a cornerback, or I'd put Ricky Pearsall, possibly our fastest back, and pretty sure-handed himself, or fastest receiver, and allow him to go and make a play. That's nothing against Frazier's, but I'd rather have the best size or the best speed in that situation. So that's the one I'm really not a fan of. The second fourth down attempt, which was when we were on our 20, AR actually audibles at the line, and I do not, in seeing the result, you may disagree, but if you watch the film, I think it'll tell a different story. I don't think it was a bad call with the safeties high to go into that running play. However, Egwekin, the center, misses his block, and the guy's blocking blows up the play. If he hits that block, we've got multiple blockers downfield. There's a lane that's a first down and possibly a big gain. But unfortunately, we didn't get that block, so I can't say that that was a bad call. Moving on to the wide receivers, I would give them a B because you can't judge them if they're being open and the ball's just not getting to them. I only counted what you could consider 2 or 3 drops maybe. And some of those were the ball coming in hot or high. The only one I can say for sure for the receivers and tight ends that I really feel good about saying that's a drop on the player is the drop by Xanders. I believe it was on the second drive of the game. We throw the ball out to the right. Xanders is on The sideline is a little high, but he does kind of bring it down, just doesn't catch it. If he catches it, gets close to the first down, possibly we keep the drive moving. We end up having what may be considered 2 of the drops of the game, because on third down, we do hit Hendo in the hands, but that ball is coming high and fast and kind of a hard catch. Again, I can't really give a good judgment on the receivers because they did find ways to get open, tight ends as well. There are times they're open. We just did not hit them. So I can't blame the tight ends, receivers for much, but I also can't really say, hey, they would have been great if they got the ball. However, there were plays that were there to be made, and they just weren't for whatever reason. Moving on to the running backs, I will give the running backs a B, and I really like Naquan Wright. He definitely is a good guy. I'm not sure if he's fully recovered from the offseason surgery and his injury, and the reason why I say that is he's not done well. It's his second straight sub or under 4 yards per carry game, and meanwhile you have Johnson, you have Etienne going for well over 5 in both games. At this point, I would lean more heavily on Etienne. I'd lean more heavily on Johnson. And that's not to say Wright shouldn't play, but maybe limit it some. And as I said in my things I want to see from the Gators episode, I said I want to see coaching adjustments. Well, after a loss, to try and put ourselves, as Billy Napier put, in the best positions to win, that's one thing I want to see. I said I think these guys know how to handle a committee. Let's see if they do. Let's see if they start giving it to the hot hands and maybe limit some rather than just this is this person's series, this is that person's series. And the things we saw under Dan Mullen with Malik Davis and Damian Pierce, that drew a lot of ire and frustration. Moving on to the O-line, I'm actually going to give the O-line a C. It was a mixed bag at times. Unfortunately, Michael Tarquin got injured. We won't find out about his status until Wednesday. Though at times, for the most part, I think Barber, who came in to replace him, did a good job. Just like Richie Leonard coming in for Ethan White, who was out for a little bit. He did a good job. One thing I can say is these extra reps for guys like Leonard and Barber, it's going to pay dividends moving forward in this program. It is unfortunate that Tarquin is out. It's great that White came back. But the thing is, there are also times that this line did not make blocks. I go back to that 4th down I referenced, where if Aguaquin makes his block on that 4th down, there's room to run for a first down, and there's definitely blockers out ahead. There are also times that pass protection wasn't as good as it should be. But again, I'm giving them a C. Overall, the offense, when we look at the play calling, look at AR's performance, receivers, tight ends, running backs, O-line, I would give this about a D because there's so many plays there that we didn't hit for whatever reason, both in the running game and the passing game. Some of that may come down to whatever's going on with why we weren't doing as many read option type plays. There may be something going on with AR's ankle, or maybe not. Again, if it wasn't, I'm very curious to why we limited AR's running ability in the way that we did. And one last thing on that is because I know someone's going to say, well, Kentucky took it away. You don't give a quarterback 2 design runs, both going for 4 yards, and then say, well, they both went 4 yards. It's taken away. Especially when you consider one of those design runs was on the first drive of the game. And when you consider the second design run was all the way in the 3rd quarter. What was going on in between? Some of those, again, maybe they were read options and I just didn't see them, or maybe we were trying to limit his carries for some reason. Let's go ahead and take a look at the defense. Overall, I would probably give the defensive grade A- or a B+ for this game. They didn't start off too hot, but Will Levis got his second ever 200-yard game in the SEC. He got 202 yards passing, which, to be honest, for a guy that we're hearing is a first-round pick, that is really well. 55 of those did come on one long touchdown play, which I'm not going to get into it, but it was reviewed and there was not a great angle of what happened. With that said, Will Levis did start 9 for 10, and this included 5 passes to the tight ends for 70 yards and 143 yards passing of the first 9 passes. And the last completion to a tight end was about with 11 minutes to go in the second quarter. The reason why I bring that up, last week, Utah took advantage of us with their tight ends. We made an adjustment, and their tight ends, who had 70 yards in the first quarter and 4 minutes, had 0 catches after that. So it was a good adjustment by Patrick Toney and his team. In fact, the adjustments by Spencer and Tony were so good. Will Levis, after starting 9 for 10, finished 4 for 14, 0 tight end catches, and only 59 yards passing the rest of the way. And when I say the rest of the way, we're talking that's about 11 minutes left after they score that 55-yard touchdown pass. So good adjustments there. Kentucky had about 70 yards rushing officially. However, 39 yards were lost by that bad snap on the punt that led to the safety. So adding that back, it's about 109 yards we allowed, 41 of which would be in the first half, 68 in the second half. Meanwhile, in the second half, we only allowed about 17 yards rushing until we got down by 7. And on those last 2 drives, while we're trying to strip the ball, while we're trying to keep Kentucky from scoring while trying to force a turnover, they ended up with 41 yards. And the reason why I bring that up is there was some conversation online or on the Twitter machine that I was having where, well, we moved back to stop the tight ends and got gashed. I don't think 17 yards rushing until we're trying to strip the ball and play some things is getting gashed. I don't believe 41 yards in one half in the first half is getting gashed. And that includes some rushing yards that were before we adjusted to stop the pass. One thing I'd also like to throw out there is this defense did force 6 punts and got an interception by Gervon Dexter. And speaking of Dexter, the defensive line, I would give an A for this Kentucky game. They caused lots of havoc. We saw lots of young guys stepping up. We saw, of course, Dexter's interception. Justice Boone got a big sack, got reviewed for targeting, wasn't targeting, made a big play there. And for the defensive line grades, I do want to say I'm counting the quote-unquote outside linebacker, the buck/jack position, whatever we're calling it this year, which includes Brenton Cox. I am including them as part of the D-line as essentially they're what was a defensive end last year. So just for that regards, they are in here. Brenton Cox, of course, had the highlight play of the first Kentucky drive where he shoved the tackle into Will Levis, pretty much setting up a sack. So good on him. He played very well this game. The linebackers, I'm going to give a B. It was kind of a poor start, but after the adjustments, they were great. Bernie had a sack himself. Shamar James, true freshman, 7 tackles in the game. Ventrell Miller, who got injured during the game, had 6 tackles, including 1 for loss. Unfortunately, him being injured, we're not going to know his status until Wednesday, according to Billy Napier. Moving on to the defensive backs, I'm giving them an A-. I would give them an A, but Kimber's 55-yard touchdown allowed. I don't know if we were supposed to have a safety back there as well, but with a 55-yard touchdown pass allowed, I've got to take away for that. Kimber was playing really tight on that play. It was a great play by the Kentucky receiver. Sometimes you do have to give credit to the other team, just like I have to give Wright credit for his interception of AR by reading the eyes and instead of completing going for the sack, reaching out one-handed pick, setting up a score that would take them to halftime down by only 3. But anyways, back to the DBs. Kentucky's top receiver, Tavion Robinson, who everyone seemed to be worried about, or Kentucky said he's going to catch for 1,000,000 yards on us. He had 1 catch the entire game. 1. And Can anybody guess how many yards that one catch went for? Anybody? That's right. 0 yards. He had one catch for 0 yards. That is phenomenal, and that speaks to the quality of the cornerbacks, to the scheme, and to Corey Raymond. Also, last week, we had some guys who got a little bit maligned. Trey Dean had a great day with 1.5 tackles for loss. I believe he led the team in tackles with 9. He also defended a pass. Rashad Torrance, who got injured but came back in the game, had 7 tackles. And again, I cannot speak for how well guys like Jason Marshall, Darius Perkins, Devin Moore, we saw Kamari Wilson coming in play, and Avery Helm, I believe, did well. Go and watch after we make the adjustments, about 11 minutes in the second quarter. All of these guys are playing their guys tight, close. They're forcing incompletions. One thing to say is Kentucky did have 3 straight drives with no completions. One of which, I'll give it to them, was the touchdown drive after Wright's interception. But if you remember, we had that roughing the passer where we had given him nowhere else to throw. We hit him, and he ends up just tossing the ball up. Arguably should have been grounding, but is what it is. The main point here is that our defense played well enough to win, and Tony and Chaos, they made great adjustments. They did a lot of things that limited Kentucky throughout the second half and the second part of the second quarter. Moving on to one last thing. It's one game. Breathe. Stop with the we need to remove ROC. Oh, Billy's not the guy. Oh, AR's exposed, or any of those other ridiculous takes. It's not a good look for just one game, especially after the high that was beating a top 10 Utah team, and it does not look good to our recruits. One of the top recruits, if not the top recruit that we wanted at that game, was DJ Lagway, the number 1 recruit or number 1 quarterback in the 2024 class. How is he going to think, I want to go to Florida, when after AR has a pretty bad game? And I'm going to be honest, it was a bad game. I said that earlier. I do think there are some things contributing to it, of course. But how's he going to think Florida's the place I want to be if after this bad game, or if I have a bad game, all the fans are going to freak out on Twitter and talk all this crap about me? Think about things like that. With all that said, if we see these issues multiple times and things aren't fixed, things aren't changed, then fine. Questions, valid. But the season, we knew it wouldn't be perfect. And every game is winnable going forward. Obviously, Georgia, it's probably in the single or low double-digit chances. USF is probably a win. Kentucky is a tough one not Kentucky. Tennessee is a tough one on the road, but still winnable. Pitt took them to overtime. There's no reason that we can't. I think we have better DBs and a better D-line than Pitt. Eastern Washington, if we lose that game, there's a lot more questions that need to be asked. Then we move on to a Mizzou team that has 2 rough games before coming to Gainesville and honestly hasn't looked that good, just got beat by K-State. That's a game we should win. Did you see how LSU looked against a FSU team that is getting better, but still probably is not there? Yes, that at home, we probably should win. We go to Jacksonville. Okay, again, lower chance at winning, probably single, low double digits. At least how it stands right now. Who knows what could happen between now and then with gameplay, injuries, just getting beat up from the SEC schedules. Who knows? Then after that, we go to Texas A&M. As I put on Twitter, which podcast was it that said they're 8-4 until they prove otherwise? And then they lost to App State. Might lose to Miami this week. There's a chance that they may have 1 or 2 wins coming into Florida. At that point, are those players going to have quit? Or maybe they turn their season around. So I'm not going to sit here and say that A&M game's a loss. I didn't do it in the beginning of the season. I'm definitely not now when they struggled against Sam Houston and then this week lost to App State, and then possibly this upcoming week have a Miami team strolling in, who for the first half struggled against Southern Miss, but is what it is. After that A&M game, we have Carolina at home. And then after Carolina, we're on the road at Vandy. And then we finish up at Florida State. There's only one team in Georgia that I think is going to probably be an L. Everything else is at least 50-50, if not favoring us. So again, chill out. It'll be all right. For those that know me, or for those that have seen me posting on like Gator Chatter over the years, or posting back in 2017 at Gator Country in the message boards, you know if it's bad, I'm going to tell you it's bad. This game, I don't like that we lost it. I don't think it was great. However, let's use this as an opportunity to maybe see our team grow. Sometimes you've got to lose to know how to win. And that's what I'm hoping that this is for this team. One loss isn't going to make me just say, well, forget all this. And it shouldn't for you either. Just chill. Let's have a nice week this week. I'll be back later in the week with a preview of the USF game. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And as always, go Gators.